Hi everyone, my name is Amber, welcome back to my channel. This is my review of Good Girl, Bad Blood by Holly Jackson. This is the sequel to A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, which I also have a review for. If you haven't read A Good Girl's Guide to Murder yet, then I suggest you check out my review and go and read that before you watch this one, because this will contain spoilers, probably for the first book in the trilogy. So I'm going to start off, as always, with a short summary of the book before I go on to my thoughts about it. So in terms of the summary, this book is about Pip again, who in the first book was obviously doing a school project on a true crime case, and she ended up solving it, and now she has little desire to be a detective anymore because it ended kind of badly for her family and for her in the first book. So now she's not really feeling it. She doesn't want to put her family in danger. She doesn't want to lose another dog, for example, but she is instead doing a true crime podcast. She thinks that's a lot safer, and that way she still gets to explore her, true crime fascination. In the first season of the podcast, she's covering the true crime case that she solved last year, and then season 2 will probably go into something else. However, this all changes because one of her classmates approaches her and said that someone has gone missing in the small village where she lives, and so she thinks, or that everyone thinks, that she is the only one who can solve it because the police are doing a crappy job as usual. I think the police say that they can't do anything because the person who has disappeared is an adult and they don't really have, the ability to do that. So I don't know, something weird was going on there with the police and they were a bit useless. So Pip gets involved and has to try to solve the case, all while her true crime podcast is going viral and people everywhere know who she is. So I gave A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, the first book, 5 stars, and I adored it. I read it in less than a day, absolutely loved it. I gave this one 4 stars because while I still loved it and thought it was really, really good, I didn't find it kind of as mind-blowing as A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, partly because the mixed media format wasn't quite as standout to me as it was in the first book. I don't know if it's because it wasn't really in here as much, because I'm flicking through now and I can see like quite a few different chapters that are like text messages and photos and all sorts. So I think it is still in there. It's just it didn't really stand out to me as much in this book as it did in the first one. There's also the fact that I don't think the true crime case was as interesting, just because in the first book Pip is solving a case that has already been closed and the police think that it's all fixed and they solved it, but that's not what actually happened. And I think in the first book the case is a lot more emotional and also a lot more close to home for Pip, especially because the so-called murderer's brother is involved with Pip as well, and they become friends to perhaps lovers. So yeah, there was a lot more going on there and it just felt a lot more interconnected, I think. There was also the fact that in the first book Pip travelled around a lot of Buckinghamshire, which is the county that I live in. We got to see all of these places through Pip's eyes, and they were real places as well, and I really enjoyed that part of it, but she doesn't really do that so much in this book, so that was a little bit disappointing for me. I thought we were going to see maybe where I live. That would have been exciting, but we didn't. That said, I still really, really enjoyed this one. Obviously 4 stars is a really good rating for me. It's just not an all-time favorite. Yeah, really, really enjoyed it. Pip was so much fun to read about. I really like her personality. I really like her passion for true crime as well. It's something that I'm also quite into. You may have already seen the video that I'm planning to do with true crime, but if not, you've got something really exciting to look forward to in the next couple of weeks, because I'm really excited to record that. So yeah, I really connected with Pip on that front, and I also really appreciated that she was willing to step back from her detective work that she was doing in the first book because it hurt her family. Like, she's aware that she's got vulnerable family members, or just family members in general, who could be affected by her detective work if she carries on doing stuff like this. And yeah, I really appreciated that because I don't really feel like that's something that's really discussed all that much in YA books in particular. The teenagers in YA books seem to be involved in all sorts and it could affect the families, but it's not really something that's talked about. I did really enjoy the connections to the first book in this one, so some of the characters that we had met before came back, and I also really appreciate that because in the first book there was a huge cast of characters. I feel like we were meeting the entire village, and in this one Holly Jackson brought back a few characters that we already knew about rather than introducing new ones, which again I really liked, because otherwise, first of all, it would have felt a little bit disconnected, and really how many people are coming out of this village. But also we already had some background on these characters as well and they've been mentioned previously, so it was a really good shout for her to do that. The overarching plot I thought was really, really good. The mystery elements of this one were fantastic. I really enjoyed it. I didn't see some of the things coming, and I did feel like towards the end it was a little bit unbelievable, but again, it's a YA thriller. A lot of the time thriller endings are quite unbelievable, especially in YA. So I wasn't too bothered by that. It just came a bit out of nowhere, so it wasn't really something that I could have investigated alongside Pip like I could in the first book. I didn't really have as many theories in this one. I'm definitely going to have to reread these two books before the third one comes out. I think it's coming out this year, but I'm not entirely sure. I know that the title was recently announced and I can't remember what it was. I'm not sure if there's a cover yet. I'm a bit sad that it's only a trilogy because I thought this series was going to turn into 5 books. At least that's what it said on Goodreads originally, and it's only a trilogy now, but I suppose it makes sense. I do have really high hopes for the third book because this one was a strong sequel and there's definitely no like middle book syndrome here. The third book I'm hoping will also be set in Buckinghamshire just before maybe Pip goes to university. I don't know. I just really enjoy the small town mystery vibes that this series gives off, and I love that it's set in the UK as well because so many of the thrillers that I read are set in the US and they're not really places that I have any connection to whatsoever. So the fact that this is not only set in the UK but it's actually set in the county where I live makes for a really good series for me because, like I said, it's very personal. I can imagine all of these places and the murders happening. I can imagine the police force doing a really bad job. So yeah, I do really enjoy this series. I would highly recommend reading this book. It came out in the US just recently, but it's been out in the UK I think for almost a year now. I'm not really sure when this one actually came out. Do get your hands on it if you can. I don't really have anything negative to say about it other than it wasn't quite as mind-blowing as the first book, but now that I'm talking about this I actually want to reread it. I read it back in December and I haven't read it since, so maybe I'll give it a cheeky reread this weekend because I really want to get back into Pip's head, I think. Anyway, that's my review of this book. Let me know your thoughts on Good Girl Bad Blood in the comments below, or tell me what you thought of Good Girl's Guide to Murder if you haven't read this one, you've just ignored what I said and watched this video the entire way through. I would love to talk about this book with you, but please don't include any spoilers. You can DM me instead if you would like. Also let me know if you have any other recommendations for YA thrillers that kind of follow the same sort of beats as this one. I really enjoyed the mixed media format of this, so if you have any other thrillers that also do a similar thing, please tell me because I'd be very interested in picking those up. Thank you so much for watching this video and I'll speak to you all in the next one. Bye.